So you want to know who is winning the season of Survivor that you are watching right now, but you don't want to cheat by looking up spoilers or rumors. Well, aren't you in a precarious position then? It's one I find myself in every time I watch a new season of Survivor as well. Who is going to win the whole thing? It's a game I play to see who it is and how early into a season am I certain about them winning. Sometimes I can nail it in the first few episodes. Sometimes it isn't until the merge, and sometimes it takes until the finale. It's a game within a game, as I might call it. Wink, wink. So today I'm going to help you play along and do your best to spot a winner utilizing only the hints and information provided by the show. This video was made possible by the patrons on my Patreon, and every month they vote on what videos I should make, like this one. Consider joining them to get videos early and to pick what videos I make. For clarification, we will be looking at modern seasons of Survivor to make this breakdown happen. So the winners of seasons 1, 2, 11, 19, 30, and 34 through 41 will be spoiled, so heads up, as older seasons do have their own quirks as to how to spot a winner, and heck, back then, the storytellers were so cheeky that in season 1, they went as far as to have the winners say in their first confessional that they have this game in the bag.
I'm good to go, survival-wise. People-wise, it'll be a little more challenging, but I've got the $1 million check written already. I mean, I'm the winner. And it's that kind of cocky attitude that makes people really hate your guts. So that's the kind of thing I've really got to keep under wraps.
But obviously after that season, audiences started to catch on. In fact, in season 2, they completely hid the winner by having no confessionals and basically no screen time. But that didn't happen for too long, as they still gave hints in the premiere. For example, in Guatemala season 11, here's the hint that Danny is going to win.
I mean, not many people get 2 chances to win $1 million. Danny.
And somewhere along the way, the subtle hints evolved to the point where if you're paying close enough attention, you'll see the editors combine that technique from the first season with the technique from the 11th season to say, hey, we're gonna narrow it down for you.
Lindsay.
Lindsay, do you agree with that?
The winner of this show is on this mat.
All right.
Those last 2 examples are not too far off from some of the hints used in modern seasons, but let's take a look at the modern era and break this down. For that, we will look at seasons 35 through 41 and what the storytellers used in those seasons to let you know, hey, this person is winning the whole thing. Keep in mind that the people editing the show and crafting the story already know the end result. So unlike a show like Big Brother, it makes a cohesive story. Every winner I'm going to cover is going to reinforce the same ideas over and over that you can use to spot a winner in a modern season. So let's start with season 35, Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers, where Ben Driebergen will ultimately take the crown over the likes of Chrissy Hofbeck. The rhyme and reason to what I am showing you is simply going to be as they pop up in an episode, but starting with season 35, Jeff does his whole opening spiel about the season, its names, and labels the tribes, beginning with the heroes. Despite there being 6 players on this tribe, we are only shown one of them being talked to by Jeff. And it's clear that the person Jeff talks to, he really likes, Ben. And the show makes it perfectly clear that Ben is a very humble hero.
Well, I have a family. I have a wife and 2 kids. I was in the Marine Corps and served our country.
So being in the armed services, you have to have heard the word hero associated with you.
Some people might say that. To us, it's just us doing our job and fighting for our country, so we'll go out and lay our lives on the line.
And what else would we expect from somebody who serves our country than to say, it's just our job?
That's all it is, Jeff.
But since Chrissy is an important part of the season and is ultimately going to lose it all to Ben at the end, they cut her in a confessional right after the whole segment with Ben about how she thinks she is a hero too, but her confessional comes across as entitled and not humble like Ben's, establishing the difference in these 2 people and setting the tone for how things will play out.
I definitely think I belong on the hero tribe.
I feel proud of having had a career and then stopped and stayed home to take care of my kids and then came back to an awesome career.
But I need to really downplay that because I don't want people to think she already makes a lot of money, so we don't want her to win a lot of money.
A good sign of a potential winner is if they relate to the season. Then that will be leaned into by the storytelling a lot, like what we just saw. Another good sign is is when they're shown as the spokesperson for the alliance and strategic decision making, even if there are others who are a part of that. For example, at the Heroes Camp, we see only 2 people really talking about observing and strategy, them being Ben and Alan Ball.
Right now, we're looking at a core 4, and that's me, Alan, Ashley, and JP. We're all younger, we're fit, and then we got the 2 moms, Chrissy and Katrina.
Now, us seeing Ben and Alan Ball seems like, oh, they might both be contenders, but Alan is going home in episode 4, and later on in this very episode, he kind of seals his fate as to why that is going to happen. So you end up with more evidence for being pro Ben from the Heroes tribe. Remember that going into tribal council, Ben is only one of 4 people who will be voting out Christina, and yet he is the one we hear from as the mouthpiece of this alliance.
At tribal council tonight, there's 2 ways Alan and I can go. We can go with the mom squad and go straight for Ashley, or we can go with JP and Ashley and get Chrissy or Katrina out. I'm a little worried about Ashley and JP having something going on, but as a tribe, we have to stay strong, and the 2 older women are probably the weakest link in our tribe. Whether or not you go with strength or loyalty, in the long run, it's about Alan and I, who we trust the most.
Not a giveaway as to him being the winner, but all good signs in this episode. That is what the premiere of Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers gives us for Ben. No silver bullets like a cocky confessional, but some solid storytelling decisions were made to show Ben as important, humble, and smart. Especially given that this episode's only 42 minutes, that's a sign that you'll see in a lot of modern winners. They take the time, no matter how short the episode, to make sure we know who the winner is, what they're thinking, and who they are as a person. Our next example is in season 36, Survivor Ghost Island with Wendell Holland. His first sign that you can consider him a contender to win it all comes when about halfway into the premiere, we hear a pretty significant confessional where he talks about how he grew up with his dad, teaching him how to make furniture and how he chose to do law instead, but then changed his path.
When did you start doing furniture design?
My pop started me out building actually, because he had me doing like drywall in the basement and stuff like that growing up. And now I'm doing exactly what I love so much. I went to UPenn Law, top 10 law school, but I wasn't where I wanted to be. So I followed my passion. I took off the suit and now I'm a freelance furniture designer. So I am more than I appear.
This is a lot of personal content in our introduction to Wendell, especially, once again, when we are watching a 42-minute episode, and not everyone gets these kind of confessionals. Oh no, just the people who are important to this season. We get some more surface level content with Ben when he talked with Jeff, but here, this is solid, especially when given to us so early in a season. Having us get to know who someone is as a person in Survivor is a sure sign that they are likely going far. Why else would they want us to get emotionally invested? The only other hint given in this premiere is him talking about Dominic, someone else given lots of good content this episode, and how being with him will help Wendell in the long run. Since both of them are at Final Tribal together and do end up tying for the win, and they work together all season, these two being shown as important in the premiere and then linking them up together like this is the foreshadowing we need.
As soon as I heard Dominic's name, I was like, man, let me give him some information because I think I can show him my loyalty and I think it's going to reciprocate in the long run.
Unfortunately, the premiere of Ghost Island doesn't give us anything else for Wendell, but his tribe avoids tribal council, so that's just how the cookie crumbles. We now move on to season 37, David versus Goliath, where Nick Wilson will ultimately win the season, and with a longer premiere episode than the last 2 seasons, he is actually given a lot more content to flesh him out and set him up as a main character who has a shot to win. In fact, he is given the most blatant shot to win based on the premiere, kind of like Ben before him. Nick leans into the theme of the season, which the storytellers love when someone does this, but even more so, he is the only one to mention what David does after beating Goliath.
I grew up in a trailer in the holler, so if I wanted to make something out of myself, I had to go and get it for myself. I mean, I was the first person in my family to go to college, so I learned it by doing it. You know, David not only slew Goliath in the Bible, he ended up becoming a king too, so
That's right. Woo!
The story don't stop with David versus Goliath.
Yeah.
I think it is a neat touch he's on the David tribe, but that is incidental and not purposeful for reading into the story. But the show didn't have to show us Nick saying this. If a Goliath won this season, I don't think we see what Nick says about David slaying Goliath and then becoming the king. He then does something we have seen people attempt at in past seasons and fail epically at, making alliances with everyone. We see him do it, and unlike in past seasons with past players, not a single person gives him a negative reaction to doing this or says to us, yeah, I know Nick's going around making alliance with everybody and I'm just not buying it, letting us know that his strategy works.
It's very easy to get people to trust you on Survivor. It's almost too easy. If I can in this game, I want to name all the alliances just because I'm out here to win $1 million, but I'm out here to have fun too.
All right, go. Yeah.
But truly, the silver bullet in this episode, and basically how you could figure out Nick is going to win this season in the premiere episode, is in this next scene. What happens is it's nighttime and it's raining, and Jessica and Bai share some very personal stories of hardship, reaffirming how they are David's to us, but making us connect with them as well. While that might seem like they kind of fit the bill then for being considered as contenders, they aren't. Jessica will be voted out in the next episode, episode 2, and Bai quits at the beginning of episode 4. But they set up Nick for a very long confessional about how, despite the entire tribe sharing their stories, he didn't want to because it was just too personal.
Well, I have this story. I really didn't feel comfortable sharing it. It's personal and it's for me and like my brothers and sisters in my family.
But he ultimately does, and it shows growth to us and reaffirms how important he is and how we need to be invested in him.
Where I come from, like we all have somebody close who's like, you know, had drug problems. And I was just so scared to talk about it because I don't want like my mother to look bad, you know? But like to lose my mom to something like that, it's so sad to me. I mean, she overdosed like 3 years. No, it's so like, I miss her so much. It's like all I've been thinking about. I think when I opened my heart to him, it really made a difference. I think it kind of forms a bond, and it'll help me grow closer to all these people, and all of them I need at this point.
Despite him saying that everyone shared their stories, we don't hear from everyone. Only 2 people going early and our eventual winner. His screen time, like past winners we have looked at, is very important. It isn't fluff content like some people get stuck with, like how they'll talk about how hard the conditions are or how hungry everyone is. Some people will get confessionals where they're not really talking about anything. That is not Nick. It is real stuff to get to know him as a person, and like Wendell, Nick doesn't have tribal in episode 1, so no real strategy content, but just know that throughout the season, his strategy content only backs up everything else. So we move on to season 38, Edge of Extinction, and this one is a strange season. In fact, it's a strange winner edit as a result. Everything we have talked about so far may seem like garbage, and that is because the winner, Chris Underwood, gets voted out in episode 3, a pre-merge boot. The show does next to nothing to help us get to know him or anything about how he thinks strategically prior to him getting voted out. It's a disaster when taking the base formula of how the storytellers hint at winners in these modern seasons and trying to apply it here. When the season was airing, people were legitimately confused because absolutely no one was given a clear winner's edit like we have seen in the past. While this is abnormal, it's not completely unprecedented. Chris is unique in that he gets 0 confessionals in the premiere episode. And who was the last winner to have this happen to them? Natalie White in season 19. And Tina Wesson in season 2. So does this season have any hints that Chris is going to win? Yes, but not as much as you would hope for prior to the finale. In the premiere, we get one of the oldest tricks in the book, the editing hint hint when Jeff says Survivor is unpredictable.
Because Survivor is unpredictable. And that's why it's so great. Just think of the history of great Survivor players who have yet to win.
It cuts immediately to Chris because it's unpredictable that he's going to be voted out in episode 3 and then return in the finale. But to be fair, Survivor does this kind of stuff all the time to try and fake us out too, so you can't just take that as the silver bullet. It takes that hint usually combined with other factors to know it is real and not a smokescreen. The same thing happened in season 34 when Jeff yells out that someone is going to win the $1 million, and it cuts to Sarah Lucina in her tribe's boat.
For one of you, this is the beginning of $1 million adventure. Good luck!
These hints alone are not silver bullets, as I just said, just affirmations when narrowing down who the winner could be. The real Chris content is given to us in episode 4 after he is voted out, where finally, for once, we hear from him as a person and what his aspirations are.
It's really hard being out here. A lot of my fears started to come out. I've got a fear of failure, need for approval, like just trying to be perfect. This is perfectionist. I failed. Like, it got me voted out. This idea of playing a perfect game is completely shot. So, coming to terms with that, maybe that's a part of this journey too.
To be fair, most people when they come to the edge get something like this, but not everyone. But Chris is the only person who comes to the edge, tells us about this, and then reminds us in the penultimate episode where he has an epic shot of him reading a letter.
The entirety of the letter is about how I want to play a perfect game, and I failed at that. But having the edge of extinction, the introspective, the personal quest to find out who I am, how much I've grown and how much I've changed, that's what I'm taking home. It's not even worth $1 million. That's priceless.
Interesting that it all tied together in a full circle right before the challenge to come back into the game. Then when he does win the challenge to return to the finale, this is usually a moment in the episode where the storytellers will cut to someone very important in the story about what they think about this event taking place. But instead, we hear from Chris, someone who has been seemingly unimportant all season, not Rick or anyone else, about this taking place.
This is the most excited and nervous I've been out here. And now I am going to do everything in my power to win this game.
Now that may seem like the obvious person to cut to, after all, he is the person who returned to the game, but remember that for later in this video, as all this is about spotting patterns. For Chris, he doesn't get a clear winner's edit until the finale, and if you watched Edge of Extinction unspoiled being the best way to watch any season for the first time, then you may come to the conclusion that Rick Devens is going to win despite a very messy story and it not being that clear winner's edit that you're looking for. Rick gets a lot of the things that a winner gets, but he also gets a lot of things that winners don't get, and it makes it very confusing. Once Chris eliminates Rick in the fire-making challenge at the Final Four, that is game over. No final tribal is needed to know he will win. The entire finale is the Chris show, and eliminating the only other person who seems like a contender seals the deal. Now, Edge of Extinction is an outlier season, but important to remember in case it is ever utilized again or some sort of twist like this is used again. Though when it returns in season 40, the storytellers give way more hints as to who is returning. So let's move on to season 39, Island of the Idols. Back to normalcy in a way. No one has a shot to return to the game when voted out, and Tommy Sheehan is going to win. Right away, like what we kind of saw in Edge of Extinction and in Worlds Apart, but happens more often than you realize when watching every season, is a silver bullet. In fact, I'm a little surprised by how obvious they make this one.
And who will have what it takes to outwit, outplay, and outlast all the rest to claim the $1 million prize?
As I said before though, that alone is not enough. Sometimes it can be used as a smokescreen, but if it is going to be the winner, it's the icing on the cake. That cake being for Tommy, about us finding out who he is as a person, his personal relationships, his strategies, people reinforcing his positive traits. It's just a solid segment that covers a lot of bases at once.
As a 4th grade teacher, my job is to make sure everyone feels comfortable around me. In this game, I'm doing the same thing.
My favorite teacher of all time was my 4th grade teacher.
And my strategy was to connect with people in one-on-one conversations and get to know who they truly are. And it's really working. Everyone has been coming up to me, and I think I did a great job of connecting with people one-on-one, and I'm building a lot of alliances.
Now, the one thing Tommy never really has going for him this season is the theme. Unlike the winners of the past seasons we have talked about so far, Tommy never leans into Island of the Idols because he never goes there. And it's not like Tommy is adverse to leaning into things. When the Applebee's reward challenge happens, he leans into Applebee's pretty hard.
Walking up to Applebee's was unbelievable because the first thing we saw was the shark bowl. We're in the Fiji Islands, and that's just the island drink. It was unbelievable. So it was one of the greatest moments and something I will never forget for the rest of my life.
And while he does go to Island of the Idols, it's not while it is still a twist involving Boston Rob and Sandra, aka the idols of the island. While he does mention how the island affects his strategic game from time to time, the twist just can't be a part of his game, and is instead viewed as an obstacle he must overcome. Not really his fault, and nothing the storytellers can do about it either. But considering how consistent Tommy is shown as a contender for the title of Sole Survivor, it is really his only negative all season against him being the future winner, but not that big of a negative. Now, while I was a bit surprised by how they tried to blatantly give away Tommy in the premiere, let's move on to season 40, Winners at War, because they try to blatantly tell you Tony will be the winner all season long. And understanding Tony's winning story may be the textbook example of understanding everything to look for in a winning story. Not only is he in our face from the moment the season starts with his confessional about how this season is the Super Bowl, but that's just kind of typical Tony at this point, we have other characters helping set up things for us to understand Tony will win. For example, Nick says this.
We're given an in-game currency called a fire token, and I think the winner of this season will be the person who is able to use the currency correctly.
Now that will not come up until the merge, but it can be easily argued that Tony uses the fire tokens very effectively, outside of Natalie Anderson, the eventual runner-up. But the real kicker is the return of the winner's quote, something we haven't seen in the past few seasons, but used to be a big part of Survivor. Now it's back in season 40. The thing the winner says in the premiere episode that gives us a massive red flag of, hey, here's the winner.
Right now, I don't want to put a target on my back by showing them that I'm back to the old Tony Vlachos' antics. So I want everybody to get nice and comfortable with me, because their guards are here right now, and they're slowly coming down as they see Tony's around the camp all day, all night. It's coming down like this. And when it gets down to here, bang! That's where the sucker punch comes in.
Not only does Tony cover how he learned from his massive mistakes in Game Changers, but he foreshadows exactly how his game will play out. Something that Tony has happen all season that past winners will get as well is making sure we are still aware of his presence and what he is up to, even if it is silly and even if it has almost nothing to do with the strategy of the episode. After all, Tony is following through with his winner's quote. In episode 2, we see what would normally be a bonus scene online and for other people quite literally is, but here it has to take a precious time in the episode because we're building up Tony as the winner, and all he does is build some stupid, terrible ladder that's just really funny.
How is this guy still alive? He does not give two cares.
Stop that, Yule!
That's the guy that's enforcing the law at home. Now I'm questioning my read on him. Maybe he's not joking. Maybe he really believes that he is the structural engineer.
And again, in episode 7, when Tony is still flying under the radar but softening people up, we take valuable time out of these short episodes to see Tony running on the beach like a goof.
Go!
And those are just 2 examples of so many. Watching the pre-merge, you'll notice how DeCall gets one scene every episode of Tony and reminding you Tony's being a goof and staying under the radar. It really reminds us, hey, don't forget about Tony. He's doing exactly what he said he would do. Checking in on the eventual winner is a very common winner storytelling technique, but another one that is very important to know is how when an important event happens where it seems like maybe we should hear from the person who just experienced it, we instead hear about what the winner thinks about how it could affect their game instead. The thing I referenced with Chris back in season 38. For example, in the finale, Natalie Anderson returns to the game and you would think we would hear her thoughts about how she's pumped to be there. After all, that's what Chris Underwood got. But instead, we hear from Tony.
When I seen all these people and they're telling their stories, the hardships, the suffering, the struggling that they did on the edge, it really hurt me on an emotional level. However, I gotta put the emotions to the side. We have a game to play. I'm not gonna let off the gas for 1 second. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna press it even harder if I can. I'll put it right through the floor at this time because the end is coming up.
Yes. This one is a reoccurring theme in modern Survivor seasons and could be one of the biggest telltale signs if you pay close enough attention. Important event happens, cut to one of the real contenders for the season to hear their thoughts. It's a classic move at this point, but if for some reason prior to Final Tribal Council you felt there was not enough evidence to justify that Tony's going to win, though there is loads of evidence, the storytellers once again air a blatantly obvious confessional.
We always had a queen of Survivor for many, many years, which was Sandra. We never had a king of Survivor. Now I'm hoping that I can take home and be the king.
Survivor 41 tried throwing us all a curveball in a way that pretty much anyone who read the edit was confused come merge as to who was going to win, and yet in hindsight, the clues were there, we just didn't know it yet. For example, the show does its usual thing of giving us an epic, tightly edited intro package like they do every season, but what you might not notice upon first glance is just like the Tommy hint in season 39. They told us who the final 3 would be when they showed Deshaun, Xander, and Erica at the very end.
COVID has made me more excited to play the game.
Getting into the game, I'm going to be an animal that's let out of its cage.
This is what I live and breathe for. Oh my God.
Keep in mind, they try throwing a decoy in there by showing Sarah right before those 3. However, the show does its best to hide its winner, which seems strange given the past seasons we have covered. That can only last for so long, as episode 4 is really where all the massive red flags were just laid bare for us. But they are easily ignorable if you focus on what has happened in the first 3 episodes. For example, Erica says 100% what the show has led us to believe so far.
I've been playing very low key, and I honestly think everyone here thinks this. I'm not thinking.
Ah, there's our setup that will pay off later. Plus, we are getting strategic thoughts as well. And heck, we even get her story laid out for us as well.
Part of me feels restless. I know that I'm small, that I'm a sweet person, but I am actually a lion dressed like a lamb. As much as I wanted to keep this innocent act up, I'm so ready to take off my little lamb costume and show my teeth a bit more. Let's turn things up a notch and get some people out.
This all seems so obvious in retrospect, but when you're just watching through these episodes, it feels so random that Erica just pops up with all the stuff at once. But there's a reason. She told us 100% what was going to happen with her, but this can be ignored when she doesn't rip the lamb costume off until episode 10. However, episode 4 still contains one massive red flag that Erica is the winner. In case you all could ignore the last 2 hints, when Luvu tries to throw the immunity challenge to get her out, they fail. So it leaves you scratching your head why we spent 6 minutes of a 42-minute episode on how they are throwing the challenge to only fail, unless it means their failure is important later on, which it is.
The win very much felt like a loss to me. Nasir was just the man at that challenge. He had this moment, and I'm proud of him because Nasir is a good guy. He deserves the moment. I just didn't want that moment to be at that challenge.
Notice how Deshaun, the runner-up of the season, says them winning feels like a loss for him. Because it is. As of the time of this recording, season 42 has just begun, and while I don't know who the winner is yet, I do want to point out a few things the premiere of the season did to piggyback off 41 that could be red herrings or they could be legit. First, Omar gets a confessional that feels almost 1-for-1 what Erica said in episode 4 of her season.
I'm gonna come out into this game acting like a pigeon, something that's non-threatening, but really I'm gonna be like the owl in the night. You're not gonna hear or see me coming until you're dead and Jeff is snuffing your torch.
Is that a red herring? We shall see. But I think the actual biggest hint is at the end of the intro package of season 42, where they use a similar technique to season 41's intro package, but instead of confessionals, it's just a flash of players, but we see only 3, and that is not something any casual viewer will catch on to, unlike the Omar confessional. It goes fast because they don't give each of them a confessional like in 41, but that is a very specific set of 3 people who only come from 2 different tribes, but we shall see. The patterns they use and their techniques are oh so important to understanding when playing the game of who is going to win. Here is the bullet point version of everything we just covered. That way you can screenshot it and save it for whatever modern season you are watching to remember. Here are the things I need to keep my eyes and ears open for. The storytellers know where everything is headed and will set things up constantly that will pay off later. The winner is going to be given important screen time, usually about them as a person and or their strategic thoughts. They rarely are saddled with doing fluff confessionals about unimportant things. The editing will usually always give little hints or sometimes bigger hints that will support who the winner is going to be, but will sometimes try to fake you out. The winner will relate to the theme of the season when possible. The winner will rarely, if ever, speak ill of others. Yeah, so that last bullet point is something I noticed that isn't ever explicitly stated, but seems to be a trend with the recent winners. It's how none of them speak ill of others, even if others are shown speaking ill of them. For example, Reem and Keith rip Chris a new one on the edge of extinction multiple times, but we never see any retaliation from him. Now, this doesn't mean the winner won't target people for elimination, just that the winner won't speak ill of someone as a person. This is a very modern technique for sure, because the show wants you to like the winner, or at least not see them as some massive villain. So if you think someone is on the path to winning, but they're definitely being a villain, it may be time to step back and reassess. That's just my observations though, and I don't make the show. So that could change, but that's been the trend in all these recent modern seasons. Anyways, now you have the tools and knowledge to observe and see who the contenders are for the title of Sole Survivor, and week by week narrow down who is the real winner before the show ever reaches Final Tribal Council. So what do you think about these winner identifying techniques? Is there one you know of that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for tuning in, and I want to give an even bigger thanks to the patrons as they made this video happen, and it was made at their request. Once again, thanks for watching.